Hey everybody, this is Dream. We have a nice slate here for DraftKings and FanDuel today. It's a 7-game slate. I'll get into the picks for each game first here in just a second. Before I do that, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? It really helps the channel a lot. Make sure to check out Discord, link is in the description. Check out Patreon, link is in the description as well. With that said, let's get into the injury report today. We have a crazy one. So for the Pistons, Cunningham and Bogdanovich and Duran and Bagley are all out, and then Livers is questionable. For the 76ers, Embiid is questionable and Tucker is probable. For the Thunder, Pokovetsky is out and JRE is out. For the Heat, Bam and Hero are questionable. Lowry, Martin, Robinson, and Jovic are all out. For the Hornets, Hayward is doubtful and Overy Jr. is out. For the Raptors, Porter is out. For the Cavs, Wade is out. For the Jazz, Olenek and Sexton and Horton Tucker are out. For the Suns, Ayton, Shamat, and Craig are questionable. Booker, Paul, Payne, and Cam Johnson are out. For the Warriors, Curry is questionable. Clay is probable. Kuminga, Jam Green, and Wiseman are all out. For the Magic, Okeke is out. For the Blazers, Nurkic is probable and Winslow is out. For the Mavs, Doncic is questionable, DFS is out, and Cleaver is out. And for the Clippers, Paul George is out, and Kennard is out. Obviously, the Clippers might make adjustments as we get closer to the game, but with that said, we do have an interesting slate here. Lots of injuries, obviously, lots of stuff that we're going to have to wait and see on. So that is definitely going to probably change our top plays throughout the day as we get information on those injury situations. With that said, let's get into my picks for each game. I have Philadelphia over Detroit, Oklahoma City over Miami, Toronto over Charlotte, Cleveland over Utah, Warriors over Suns. Then we have Portland over Orlando and Dallas over the Clippers. So let's get into the players I like today here on DraftKings first. We're going to start with Hamid Diallo for Detroit. Now he has shooting guard, small forward positioning. He should get a lot of minutes today as a result of all the injuries. He actually played a lot in the Philadelphia game as well, and I expect him to actually play more than 20 or so minutes in this one. He's had a few games over that stretch over the season in those ranges, and he's done pretty well. His price is dirt cheap here, and he has decent upside, so I think he's a viable option. He's a high-flying player. He tends to get some peripheral stats as well, which is nice. So I expect him to play well in this game and to be a viable option. Then we're going to look at Terrence Mann from the Clippers here, who looks like they're going to have a couple guys out and maybe some more. He's kind of dependent on potentially other guys being out, and he's going to get over 30 minutes. But if he does end up, being a starter or something, he'll definitely be a must-play today. However, we'll have to wait and see about what the Clippers exactly do, and also if Doncic ends up playing or not. Then we'll look at Dwayne Washington Jr. Now, he's been coming off the bench, but he's playing 25 or so minutes each game with Chris Paul out and Booker out, and I expect that to continue here. His prices come up some, but it's still just too cheap. He is a must-play on the slate the way it sits currently. Killian Hayes also playing really well for Detroit. With the injuries and stuff and guys suspended and things like that. And I expect that to continue here. He's had mostly good games lately. His price is still just too cheap for what he's been doing. I do feel like his price will go up, but it just hasn't yet. So I don't really expect a repeat performance of his last game against Philadelphia, which was very recent, but I do expect him to have a pretty good game here. Then we'll look at Norman Powell here for the Clippers. Now, he is very dependent on, injury situations and stuff like that, and if he ends up starting. But he has upside. His floor is not super exciting, but his ceiling is good, and so he's definitely viable on the slate. Then we'll look at Scotty Barnes for Toronto against Charlotte. He's got a nice plus matchup here. He's been playing pretty well lately. He is up and down. His floor is really low as well. There's really not a whole lot of great forwards today, at least until we know more information about injuries. But he is viable on the slate currently as it sits. OG Anunoby actually a little bit safer. He's been playing really solid lately. He hasn't really had any bad games, but he also hasn't had a gigantic blowout game for a little while. But he's going to get you, around a 5x performance most nights. And so if you're just stuck with $6,400 left, he's a great option to put in there. Then we're going to look at Gary Trent Jr., who has the best upside of some of the guys available from Toronto, simply because he has big time potential and he's been playing max minutes. Though his price has come up some as a result of those of being playing really well, he's still got upside in this matchup. Then we'll look at Mason Plumlee for Charlotte. He's been playing really solid lately. I really do think he's stepped up his game recently with all the injuries to other big guys on Charlotte, so I expect him to play well in this game. This is nice. This is a decent matchup for him. Not a great matchup, but it's a decent one. And he can get around 30 fantasy points most nights, so I think he's got some upside in this situation. And then we'll look at DeAndre Ayton for the Phoenix Suns. Now, he is questionable, so we'll have to wait and see. But if he does play, he's been playing really well last few games, and he's got a plus matchup here against Golden State Warriors, who have injuries galore, especially at the bigs position. And he would have some nice upside as a result if he ends up playing. Obviously, that's a wait-and-see approach as well. Then we'll get into FanDuel here. So we have some decent plays here as well. We're going to start with Damian Lillard for the Portland Trail Blazers. He's been playing pretty well lately. He's had some pretty good games. He has upside here at his price point, though his floor is a little bit lower than I'd like for his price. He's still viable on the slate in a nice plus matchup. Keep note, though, that Orlando did play yesterday, and they did seem like they got banged up in the game, so do keep that in consideration. Hamid Diallo also looks pretty interesting today. His price isn't quite as ideal here on FanDuel as is on DraftKings, but he is viable here. He should get a lot of minutes as a result of the injuries to the Pistons, and I expect him to play well in this game. Then we'll look at Terrence Mann for the Clippers. Now, it is kind of priced up a little bit here on FanDuel as well, but he does have some upside here, especially if he can draw a start or something and get over 30 or so minutes. He should have a good chance of 5xing here, though you do have to keep track of what his situation looks like and how many guys are out for that team but when we get closer to lock. Then Dwayne Robinson Jr., he looks too cheap here. He's been playing really well with Booker and Chris Paul out, though his minutes are a little bit capped at 25 minutes, at least so far. Hopefully he can start playing a little bit more than that. He might even draw a start with the way he's played lately, so we'll have to wait and see, but he's definitely viable on the slate. Then we'll look at Mikal Bridges here for Phoenix. Now, his price point is not super ideal, and his floor is a little bit lower than I'd like, but he does have some upside anyway with all the injuries to the Suns, especially if Ayton ends up being out. But he should get more of the offense. But he has some upside here in this matchup, especially in a higher-paced game. Then we'll look at OG Anunoby here for Toronto. He's been playing really solid lately. He's not somebody that's going to really explode on, for a big, huge game most of the time. But he's been hitting right where we need him to do every game to game. And I expect that to continue here. Not somebody that I think is a must-play, but somebody you have to take a look at. Then we're going to look at Kawhi Leonard. Now, he is who knows if he ends up playing today. We'll find out close to the slate. He's been taking games off. But the games he is playing, he has done fairly well in, with the exception of the Denver game lately. His floor is pretty low, though, because of that risk. Just him being interested in playing in the game. But the last game against Atlanta, he had a really nice game. And hopefully he can build on that here, assuming he ends up playing in this one. Then we'll look at Siakam for Toronto. I find him to be pretty interesting today. He obviously has a high ceiling, but he's been hitting his floor levels the last few games, which isn't super ideal. Toronto's been kind of in a rut as a team. It seems like they've lost more than half their games lately. So obviously he needs to be playing well for them to get back on track, but this is a nice plus matchup where that can definitely happen. And then for the center position, we're going to look at Bam Adebayo. Now, he is very dependent on if he starts. He got hurt in the last game, but he seems like he's okay. But who knows if they end up letting him sit out today. But if he does play, he's definitely somebody that looks interesting in this matchup here against Oklahoma City. Then we'll look at DeAndre Ayton for the Suns. He's also in a situation where he may or may not play based on injuries and stuff like that. So we'll have to see if he ends up playing here. But overall, he has some upside potential in this matchup. against his opponent, the Golden State Warriors, who have nobody that can stop him. So, with that said, guys, there's a ton of injuries. I would say I'm advising to play light today. It's a very risky slate because of the injury situations. And overall, I do think, though, that, depending how these injuries play out, we could get some really nice situations and good value plays available. The only risk here is really going to be there's not going to be a ton of high-end plays that are going to be super viable today. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.